Okay, welcome back to TARTLEcast. Not only recording, we're live. This is a new thing we're doing, so hopefully this works. If it doesn't, whatever. But
whatever.
We're gonna make it happen. You came at me hot and heavy this morning, and you said that
After I got out of the shower, I said, "Hey, babe." That's funny. We're going live, so I'm going to take advantage of this.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You were coming at me and you're saying, Bitcoin, it's not a currency.
Right.
That's a very controversial thing you're saying.
It's not well, the question is, and this is on decrypt.co. They had an article on this, and I've seen a lot of people talking about this, but the article says, is Bitcoin an asset, a commodity, or a currency?
Well, it's obviously not a commodity. The reason I say it's not a commodity is it's not on the Chicago trade board.
Right.
First of all, it's not there. It's not listed as some sort of tangible item that people need as a base material for other functions of the economy. Is it?
No,
it's completely digital. And if we look at it as a currency, we got a couple of issues here. So no matter how much I don't like the US dollar or fiat currency,
right,
because of central banks, I can still pick up a piece of paper, and my energy cost to bring that over to you is pretty much my caloric intake for the day, right? I have a small amount of expenditure to go walk over and hand you that dollar.
Right.
Now, if you look at Bitcoin in and of itself is carrying a lot of the same principles of money. But the issue is that in order for me to move it back and forth, it's like $212. The issue is that as it increases in value against fiat, right, that the transportation cost, in a sense, becomes exponentially larger. So to move it around does not behoove you to actually transact in this item.
Yeah, you also have, when you hold a dollar and you give the dollar to me, as much as, we want to berate, the fiat currency,
and I do,
especially the US dollar.
But I love
that dollar, that piece of paper stands for more than just a piece of paper. It's backed by the United States government. It's backed by the Federal Reserve, and it's backed by the largest GDP in the world.
That's correct.
So there is some stability
to
that piece of paper.
Yes. And
now you can go to Venezuela, different story, but it's
also widely accepted as a currency.
Yes.
Where people are like, I know that this has a value to it. Socially, all of us have agreed that this has a value.
And that's how value is created.
That's how value is created. It's actually created socially. It's not by a government,
yes.
right?
You have to
the government can
that.
say it's whatever it is, but if people aren't using it, it's of no value.
Right.
The Bitcoin currently right now, because of what I would call just a transportation cost, moving it from party to party is so high, people won't, you don't want to buy a cup of coffee. I spent $1.50 on the cup of coffee at McDonald's, right? In Bitcoin value, but I have to pay $212 just to give it to McDonald's. No one's going to do that.
Right.
So that's half the issue. So gold. Let's think about gold, for instance.
Well, they even call it, let's get into this because gold is really good, but they even call it digital gold. So let's make the distinction between gold and Bitcoin.
Okay. Real gold, heavy, dirty.
Right.
You got to keep a lot of security around it.
Right.
Make sure you don't lose your passwords or the key into the vault. Right. And then with crypto, you need your keys, whatever that typed passcode is, backup phrases, stuff like that. And it is functioning as an asset because the value of it is linked to the US dollar. Its value didn't grow because society as a whole started to use it as a transaction and say, this is something we want to determine as our means of currency.
Right.
Think about the word currency. It means current.
Yes.
Last time I checked, currents move fluidly with little friction. Correct?
That's what enables currency to be able to be valued.
The fact that it can move with absolutely no friction at all. There's too much friction to move Bitcoin. And because it's so irrevocably tied to fiat currencies right now, specifically the US dollar, that makes it more of an asset, like gold. You had the gold standard, now you have the Bitcoin standard.
Right.
So it's like Bitcoin is the digital gold standard.
Yeah, and when you look at the way that Bitcoin is trending, we can understand that. And so if we begin to let's say it's an asset, and we begin to look at it in that framework. So now we say, oh, okay, as this asset, like you got Ethereum too, like for instance, and that's just going like crazy right now,
Like mad.
thousands of percents or whatever. And that Ethereum may be kind of, it's a little bit easier to move. So that may be, but it's still a moved asset.
Yeah.
Even if the federal government, whether you like it or not, in 2014 ruled that it is an asset and that you have to pay capital gain taxes on it.
But you also have some other issues here with this, and that's correct. In order for me to start most of these currencies, in order for them to have value, the original block holder to generate something new, even if it's an Ethereum-based token, I have to hold fiat in an account as collateral against the Genesis block. So the very first amount that I'm going to print, essentially, of this cryptocurrency. So no matter what you do, it's going to be an asset.
Right.
Because you've tied the value of something that otherwise has zero value to something that's already socially accepted as a currency.
Right.
So that means the currency is still the founding principle of these cryptos.
Yeah.
They're crypto assets.
Yeah. And for any currency to be viable, it has to have low volatility. So whenever you're looking at, because it has to be pinned to the value of goods and services. So whenever you're,
that's what I'm saying. No one's buying coffee with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as of
how many guys walk into a strip club and they're like, can I pay him Bitcoin? Nobody.
So this fear of inflation that we have right now, perfect example. And you look at Bitcoin as an asset to that. This could be an answer, as we're seeing it. I mean, if you would have bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, where would you be at today?
I'd be pretty flush.
So as an investor looking at Bitcoin as a long-term investment, that's where you win.
And I don't think it's so much about investing in Bitcoin, but it's more of an investment in the idea of decentralization. You're investing in the idea of a shift of power.
Yes.
You are not investing in the coin. You are not investing in it turning out to be some sort of currency itself for the mass market.
Right.
That's all it is. You really got to think about that. I shared an idea with you the other day. People have an idea with relationships.
Yes.
They're not really attached to the person.
That was yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
I've still been thinking about that.
They're attached to the idea of a relationship.
Right. Or the idea of that person.
Or the idea of that person in the relationship.
Yes.
And when that breaks down, they get all upset. People are not attached to the idea of, I want to spend Bitcoin for a cup of coffee. They're attached to the idea that I'm taking power away from governments and putting it back in the hands of people. That's what you're investing in. You're investing in a social uprising.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So it will forever be that psychologically, socially backed asset.
Right.
But it is not a currency. Now, we have to consider some things here. T-Coin, for instance. T-Coin is a legitimate currency. The reason I say that is it has no fee. The transfers are instantaneous. At its largest, takes 3 seconds. So it's processing at the same speed when you go to spend your Amex at Whole Foods. Okay? Every single individual person is running their own blockchain.
What's actually faster than Amex, because whether you're Amex, MasterCard, or Visa, that's just a note, a promise too.
That's a promise too.
It can take 90 days for the ledger to be cleared on that. People don't realize that.
So we clear in under 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have something where if I actually put work in, I earn this thing. And I can freely share it with absolutely zero friction to whoever I choose to share it with. That's a currency. It has current.
Right.
It can actually move how it wants to. It moves. Think about rivers. A river's going to cut the most difficult high friction path? No. They're going to move with gravity.
Right.
And they're going to go to the path of least resistance. That's how you define the currency. That's why they have a natural snaking shape.
Right.
Right. So that's what you need to look at. So if we're considering Bitcoin, Bitcoin is an asset. It is absolutely not a currency. And the amount of energy cost, even, there's this huge thing about, renewables and going in and doing the mining. I don't really care that you're using renewables to do the mining of the thing. It still costs over $200. For that $200 to be created, a human being was behind it.
Right.
If someone's at the Federal Reserve and they're saying, I need to put $200 more into the U.S. financial system, that person had to wake up, have a food intake of calories, base energy, so that they could make it to work, process a thought requiring more calories to be used, to then type in the thing to say, we need to put $200 more into the system. Bitcoin It doesn't work like that. It doesn't have anything about the base level of energy. T-coin, for instance, is a legitimate currency. Free flow, no friction, no cost, and your work that you put into it allows you to actually earn. That's a legitimate currency.
That's a legitimate currency, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's look at Bitcoin, because I think this is really interesting. So let's say it's an asset and we're going to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
You have two big companies that have investing in Bitcoin, billions of dollars. You have MicroStrategy, which I was telling you about that guy. He's number one. And then you have Square.
Yeah.
So too, and Jack
Dorsey
from Twitter owns Square. And so he's heavy into this. So these two companies, are regarded as Bitcoin's flagship institution. Regarded.
Gort, Klaatu, Barata, Nikto. The day the earth stood still.
So, whenever you're looking at it as an asset, think of Bitcoin's potential twofold. First is about its position as a money supply that's beyond the quantitative easing currently employed by some of the world's largest economies.
Okay, so quantitative easing. What that's saying is we need to make essentially our systems more liquid. There's so much debt, there's so much money tied up, we have to put more money into our system. So we're going to print a lot. So these central banks will do that. The thing is, you got to define what an asset is. The asset is the property of a property to a person by law, right? So it's the payment of his or her thing. And that may be a debt. So if you think about it, let's consider this. Is Bitcoin debt? Why do I say that? Well, it's my property. I'm holding it as an asset, and it's irrevocably tied to a fiat currency. So I'm essentially holding a note, a crypto note, so that I can later get paid for that crypto note.
Well, with an asset too, you can borrow against it. There's lots of options that you have, just as if you own a piece of real estate.
Well, what that gentleman from MicroStrategy
say? Yeah, MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, he argues that as central banks increase the money supply, so the value of everything bought with that currency, equities and bonds become worthless. So before we get into that, let's get it, because I love that.
Yeah, pretty much. If
so this dude, I'm telling you, everybody, go to YouTube and type in Michael Saylor, Saylor. This dude will blow your mind.
Oh, he's right.
The way he thinks. So, and we're trying to get him on the podcast. Somebody knows him. We'd love to have.
Yeah, someone just get him on
Michael
here.
Saylor. We respect you and
send a carrier pigeon.
Whenever we look at, and that's what he was talking about. So whenever you like these crazy guys that are getting millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and they're turning around buying Ferraris and stuff like that. He was joking about that. He goes, it's the silliest thing ever, because, you borrow against the Bitcoin and then allow that depreciating asset that you're purchasing, sit there, but your Bitcoin is making money.
Do you know what rich people, that's what people
do. That's why they have real estate.
That's why they
have loans.
I'm going to buy an expensive piece of real estate.
Right. Use the tax breaks.
I'm going to use my cash.
Yep.
Go buy an expensive piece of real estate.
Right.
Get the tax breaks on it. Let the land appreciate in value. I'm going to go to the bank and say, hey, here's the deed to the land.
Right.
Okay. This is the value set today.
Yeah.
I want to take out this much money collateralized against it. The bank's like, sure, it's no risk to them.
Yes.
And to you, you're like, well, whatever. I know it's appreciating. Worst case scenario, I lose the land, but get a gain on the loss.
Yes.
And at the same time, I get my note over here.
So let's say you want to buy a Ferrari and you're 24 years old and you have millions of dollars in Bitcoin. So you go to the bank, you get a loan from that asset. What is the interest rate? 5, 6, 7%, let's say. Let's just throw that out there. Bitcoin is making how much every year? Average out of the last decade?
Yeah, go ahead. Huge.
100 to 200%. So you're making, if you let the Bitcoin sit there every year, it's making 100%, 200%. And then you're on the loan, you're only paying for 5%. So hopefully everybody understands that. It's very, very simple.
That doesn't make sense to me.
So
I get a 96% spread.
So
I get my Ferrari for free.
I love this. He says this too. With Bitcoin, on the other hand, no one or no thing can change that. And monetary supply is fixed and is non-inflationary.
Yeah. So you got 21 million Bitcoin.
Yes.
And it's only divisible down to a certain amount of a Satoshi.
Yeah.
Like, and like that's many decimal places. That's it.
Yes.
That means some guy can't come in a suit like this, like all lamped up and be like, oh, we got to print more money. Right.
Right.
We got to quantitatively ease. We got to make people psychologically feel better about the fact that there's more money in the system and in their pocket. But you just gave me more Venezuelan dollars. I have a wheelbarrow full of it, but I can't buy a loaf of bread.
Yes.
So here's the issue with this. Now the currency, which is irrevocably linked to the Bitcoin, right?
I
Which
love
is an
this.
asset.
Yeah. Yes.
Every time they print money, the value of my Bitcoin is going to drop because that's a natural asset in itself. And its value is because it's not societally accepted as a means of goods and services to pay with. If the value of the dollar goes down, well, then my assets drop too.
Yes.
So what you've done is you've created this paradoxical situation where I'm going to create a coin that I think is decentralized and supported with all these nodes, and all these people all over the world are interacting with it, when really it's a bunch of institutions that bought it, and it's still tied to my US dollar. Your government is still controlling your coin because you said the value is determined by what it is against US dollar. I don't know how many times I got to say, if human beings do not determine something as value, and if it can't be moved back and forth, it's not a currency and it's not valuable.
No.
Hands down. Bitcoin is government controlled.
Yes.
It's already in the institution's hands.
Yes.
You've lost. Here's another thing too. Bitcoin is essentially it's a centralized chain. It's one chain supported by many nodes. It's all these people supporting one centralized government again.
Right. Yes.
T-Coin, many, many nodes supporting sovereign chains. Amazing. Isn't that amazing?
I love that. And we'll be able to very, very soon, you'll be able to log on to tartle.co and get T-Coin. It's a reward system that we have. And I think we've done an episode on that, or it'll be releasing here really soon. But let's get into the second one and then we'll be done. The second is in its ability to be an on-ramp for huge swaths of the world not currently reached by financial services.
Okay, actually, no. That is an untrue statement, and I will explain why. Bitcoin, fundamentally within its structure, its architecture, is not designed for micropayments.
Right.
Not one aspect of it. So this whole idea that we can take this and then apply it to the rest of the globe, about 40% of it that currently interact with the world economy that don't have access to certain financial services, it doesn't solve that problem. The barrier to entry, because you have tied it to the US dollar, has made the mining costs incredibly high. Transportation costs make it, if I'm not spending at least $200 in Bitcoin, it's of no value to actually trade this thing over.
Well, yeah. And when you have to realize whether you purchase, I purchased Bitcoin on Robinhood, and I just have it buy it automatically. But whenever I'm not actually owning that Bitcoin when I'm buying it on Robinhood or whatever.
Is it an ETF?
No, it's a Bitcoin, and it's in my account, but I don't have the log, the keyword, the password. You know what I mean?
No, Robinhood does.
Robinhood does. Yeah. I'm just purchasing it.
That's why Robinhood has a money transmitter license, because they are essentially holding this escrow for you.
Yeah, whether you buy Dogecoin, Ethereum, any of these, and you're buying them from Coinbase or whatever, until you transfer ownership to you, sovereign ownership, you do not own that.
No, you don't.
Like, I have it. It's just I'm trusting Robinhood as a holding company, for that Bitcoin that I've given money to.
I love that. I love trusting Robinhood. What's the last thing Robinhood?
If you can't trust Robinhood, then who can you trust? He stole from the rich and gave to the poor.
That's exactly my point, right? Why can't you just trust yourself?
The problem with this is it's a slippery slope.
Tell me, Alex, the slippery slope.
Because who decides who's poor and who's rich? And we saw this in Russia and in Ukraine.
Yes, we have seen this, folks.
And the slippery slope changes because it's like, oh, it's all the aristocrats. Let's go after them. Yep. And then what happened? Oh, you have 3 acres. Oh. Instead of, I only have 1. So you're richer than I am. So let's go after you.
Yeah, that's what happens.
The next thing you know, people are selling, no lie, people are selling body parts in the market to try to survive and eat.
Yep, because that's what happens when you have this socialist and dictatorial regime that comes in and tries to determine what the value is or manipulate values. You shared a chart with me the other day.
I love charts.
And we were looking at CPI. It's essentially, we were looking at an index of consumer goods and the prices over time.
And this is the fun part.
Oh, go ahead. No, please share.
When the government gets involved.
Oh, when the government
what happens to pricing?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So when these people step in to manipulate a free market, all the things that are truly fundamentally important, the needs for human survival, evolution, right, become immensely more expensive. But things that keep you in a state of control, inundated with fake media, all these toys, things that are essentially de-evolutive, things that are just wants, it's the wants that are subsidized. And the needs are the things that have to have this premium on it. And the government decided that. What benefit does that have for any? There's no free flow. The government doesn't even understand currency.
No,
They're a giant dam.
they don't know what to do. Even when you have currencies that go into free fall, what do governments do?
Print more.
They restrict. Yeah, they either restrict citizens to access it, or they turn around and to prevent devaluation, or they don't care like the United States and say, we have the high GDP, so let's just print more.
That's exactly
There's
right.
a printing press that's going
all day long. And our printing press is just a digital record. Everyone's like, there's all these dollars floating around. That's nonsense.
So how does T-Coin solve all this?
Or why are you asking such big questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we're at 20 minutes.
Yeah, we'll punch out of this episode. How does T-Coin solve it? Every piece of work that you do, the effort you put in, you're rewarded for. Through that reward, you get priority. Just because someone's rich does not mean they get a buy priority. You work for priority. There's fairness, and it requires responsibility.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of irresponsible people that happen to gain priority over a lot of things. And that doesn't make much sense, right? So to prevent cornering the market, to create a currency that has a naturally free flow, that is completely feeless and manages micropayments across a global scale to help people that are otherwise have no access to the financial system, T-Coin solves that.
I love that.
Thank you.
Well, peace out. Hopefully you love. This is our first live show like this, so we'll be doing more of these.
Thank you for listening to TARTLEcast with your hosts Alexander McKegg and Jason Rigby, where humanity steps into the future and source data defines the path. What's your data worth?